He's never been closer to that $500,000 prize. If he can drop 3,000-pound moose ahead of him, he'll likely push past the 100-day mark and beat Roland to claim top spot in Alone. The brand new 2026 season of Alone has officially begun, and already, all 10 experts have shown up, their hunting skills sharper than ever.
比赛刚开局，他们就把松鸡、松鼠和兔肉吃了个够。接下来，我班子继续给大家细细复盘这一期。此时比赛已进行1周。
Will has thrown himself into building a permanent shelter, basically reviving a survival method tested for over 1,000 years. He gathers moss sod from the ground and lays it over the shelter's frame to form the walls. This type of sod-built shelter is called an ifrulik, a classic Inupiaq turf house whose origins can be traced back to the Thule culture, giving it a history of roughly 1,500 years. In the extreme cold of the Arctic, it's long recognized as a stable survival shelter. The turf layer not only blocks strong winds, but also traps heat inside, creating an effect similar to a natural thermos. Will's camp lies within the frigid Arctic Circle, and with the inexhaustible supply of moss sod nearby. This perfect match between material and environment makes the Inupiaq turf house the inevitable solution for this frozen land. So far, the exterior walls of his shelter are fully completed, with the roof frame postponed to tomorrow. Right now, it's only about 9 degrees in the Arctic Circle, and Will has been doing intense labor in heavy, waterproof boots. While they keep out cold and water, they don't breathe at all. By the time he stops, his feet are already burning. The stench was intense, so he packed grouse feathers in his boots, since feathers can inhibit bacterial growth and absorb odors. What seems like a simple trick actually comes from years of knowing this land and its materials. While building his shelter, Will had already set up a large number of snares and traps early on for passive hunting. He still hadn't run into any moose, but every day when he checked his traps, there were unexpected surprises.
Caught a rabbit. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Much needed. Yes, we're eating good.
This rabbit really came at the perfect time. Building the shelter today had burned a lot of energy, and his body was already deeply depleted. So this rabbit arrived as the perfect resupply for Will. Back at camp, Will set to work skinning and processing the rabbit. Many might wonder why Will doesn't eat the rabbit skin. Though rabbit hide holds plenty of fat, it's also loaded with indigestible keratin for humans. Even after cooking, it yields little nutrition. In a cold wilderness, insulation matters more than food. After such a long period of energy drain, a hot meal like this becomes especially precious and
juicy. A lot juicier than that grouse, which is awesome. Testicle, I think.
As Will slowly settled into this hunting-driven way of living, a more critical time was approaching. The first 10 days after the show began, the 10-day ban on using gillnets was nearly over. On the last night before it expired, Will started making a gillnet, and the moment day 10 arrived, he immediately set the net in the river. He just needed to wait calmly to pull it in. By this time, Will already had 2 passive food sources set up, so even if he didn't head out hunting himself, these 2 passive systems still gave him a buffer. Will kept pouring his energy into upgrading and reinforcing his shelter. He covered the shelter's roof with sod. The mossy turf is full of tiny air pockets inside. While fine-tuning the roof, he has to account for winter rain, snow, and how well it stands up to the wind. At the same time, the roof is where heat escapes the fastest, so Will uses a large amount of moss sod on top of the shelter. Layer by layer, he piles 3 tiers thick, and the Ifrulik-style turf house is done, a much more comfortable home. Will breaks down the wooden bed in his temporary shelter and carries it into the new one. When winter hits, having his bed raised off the ground will be crucial for getting a decent night's sleep. Will also takes down his tarp and repositions it over the new shelter, adding another layer of security for the shelter. Up to this point, it is now fully finished. After one night's trial, Will feels he slept great, almost like he was at home.
Slept in my shelter last night, slept just amazing. I mean, how cool is that to be able to sleep in a home?
From here on, Will can devote himself entirely to getting food. Checking the gillnet now becomes a daily habit for him. In terms of long-term survival, fishing is better than hunting rabbits and small game. When Will hauls up the net to inspect it, this.
Too big a one, but we'll take it. Yeah, the first fish. Nice size sea lick.
Pike gives him a huge surprise. Although it's not very big, this first fish he catches is enough to prove that the gillnet works. After 10 days of grouse and rabbit with no fat, he's never felt full, and this plump pike will completely change Will's diet. There on the riverbank, Will cooks the fish over a fire, and while eating, he starts shaping a new survival plan. If he can catch more pike in the river later on, Bull plans to smoke and preserve the fish meat. Fish is his main lifeline to reach the final. While others still fantasize about a big haul of fish, Burti has already shown everyone the answer through his actions. So far, he has caught 7 pike. Besides the 5 gin of fish meat in the pot behind him, all the surplus fish has been sliced into strips and smoked dry in his smokehouse. This smokehouse was built by Burti on day 5, and up to now, Burti has the biggest fish stash. And while others are hungry, this youngest contestant has already begun putting food away. Even though his food problem is basically solved, Burti can't just slack off because of that. With the nights growing ever colder, Burti senses that Arctic winter is closing in. If he wants to outlast the cold and reach the finish, he needs shelter for temperatures far below 0. Burti chooses open grassland as his site, setting up a traditional Indian teepee. He fells a few spruce poles up to 5 meters long, and in the clearing he sets up a triangular frame. These few steps, though they look simple, are brutally hard on the body. For Burti, suffering from heat stress, putting up a shelter is not easy. With the lure of the $500,000 prize, Burti won't quit. He scrambles up the shelter frame and lashes the 3 main support poles tightly together at the peak with branches. This step gives the shelter a stable triangular structure. As the youngest contestant, he's really starting to love this life out here now.
All in it at once. I'm feeling really, really good. I want to have fun here, and emotionally I feel like I'm in a location where I can actually feel like I'm at home and I feel like I can enjoy the process.
He's not hurrying to finish. He chips away daily, cutting, hauling, setting crossbeams. As it comes together, setting each timber, he rediscovers the joy and long-lost freedom of the work. Bit by bit, the shelter rises, shape becoming more distinct. To him, it's not just a shelter. It feels like he's creating a whole new life. But the long back and forth log hauling is starting to push his body to its limits. Back at camp, Burti sets out plate of rabbit stomach contents. To most people, it might just look like what the rabbit hasn't yet excreted. But in Burti's eyes, this is all undigested byproduct inside the rabbit, used to some extent as a substitute for vegetables, not only as a source of protein, but also to provide essential vitamins. For Burti, coming off heavy physical work, it gives him a bit of cushion and helps him bounce back, though it's sour and bitter. A delicacy you force yourself to eat when food is scarce. Burti's willpower is remarkable. After 9 days, the only female contestant, Jax, reappears. This is her second time on camera. It seems the first 8 days were less important than the mosquito bites on her hands. Seeing the tent behind Jax, she spent 8 days there acclimating to the environment. Only today does she start building a permanent shelter. Her saw moves with about as little drive as she shows. Perhaps Jax still hasn't realized this is not some casual survival game. If she hopes to win this challenge, she'll need both a clear plan and real drive. Jax plans a semi-subterranean shelter. Unlike a surface hut, this one drops the main living space down into the earth, tapping the ground's own insulation to fend off the steadily falling night cold. Queen of Alone, Callie once built a similar semi-subterranean shelter. Its above-ground section is fairly easy to put together. Here, digging out the underground section takes more work. As Jax frets over tackling the next stage, a plump rabbit shows up at the perfect moment, and Jax immediately grabs her bow and fires.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I got a hair. I got a hair. I got a hair. Oh, buddy. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, universe.
When she drops the rabbit, Jax looks honestly stunned, as if even she hadn't expected that arrow to hit. As a survival instructor, hunting should be second nature, yet her reaction genuinely surprised me. Checking her bio again, I noticed it never once mentioned any hunting background. That makes us reassess how she's been positioned on the show. A windfall like this will soon be overtaken by reality as she carries the rabbit back to her shelter. That night, Jax finally eats a fragrant meal of roast rabbit,
taste of success. I am glad because that bow got me food.
A hot meal not only pleases his tongue, it also makes his whole body feel alive again. Alongside the roast rabbit, Jax also fries a pan of rabbit organs. Out here, organs are never just a bonus. They're his first choice fuel, there to rapidly plug the holes heavy exertion punches in the body. To him, this successful hunt is far more than just dinner. It feels like a sign that he's no longer just scraping by, but actually has what it takes to last out here. As Jax is still riding high on a single rabbit, another man is already eyeing a near 1,000-pound moose. A week before, Pedrosa had already taken 2 rabbits and 2 squirrels, and this first cache of meat let his survival plan here really start to take shape. Pedrosa scrubs his pot lid with wood ash. Because ash is highly alkaline, it can be used as a cleaning agent to keep cookware sanitary. That small step is vital for staying healthy in the bush. repeated diarrhea could set back his run in the competition. While Pedrosa has brought in food early, they still can't match the nutrition of a big fish. Knowing he also has to keep working on his shelter, Pedrosa adjusts his survival strategy and shifts his hunting ground to the river. The rabbit organs from his earlier hunts can finally be used. Pedrosa uses animal organs as bait and sets a fishing rod at the riverbank. From now on, fish will become his main source of food. Contestants have long believed that only by taking down large game can they hope to win, and they forget that when winter arrives, body fat is key to survival. Pedrosa has noticed that even though past contestants brought down big animals, yet once winter arrived, they still shed weight fast and ultimately had to rely on ice fishing for meat.
有的人一箭放倒上千斤的驼鹿，却没拿到冠军；也有人干脆不带弓，靠别的办法撑到最后。
Even if you snare grouse and pull fish, you can take the title. How much meat you eat doesn't decide the winner. The key to surviving an Arctic winter is a steady supply of fat. Pedrosa understands this very clearly. Blindly chasing big game will only land him in trouble. Right when he's ready to commit to fishing, a deer call rings out behind him, stirring hunting instincts again. He said he didn't want to hunt big game, but his body betrayed that. When one finally shows up, who can resist a shot? A moose appears near the shelter. This might be Pedrosa's best hunting opportunity yet.
Holy, it's the moose.
No one refuses prey that comes to their doorstep. Moments like God handing you a hot meal are rare. Pedrosa grabbed his bow and arrows to hunt, but after edging closer, he realized it wasn't just one moose near his shelter, but 3. At this point, the change in quantity had already become a change in quality.
It's a female is with 2 childs, so I cannot hunt them, but they are awesome.
Because of the divorced with 2 kids rule, they fell under protection, but the regulation covers only moose calves. Only after looking more carefully did Pedrosa notice both calves already had full antlers. Here, the antlers show they're already fair game. With enough skill, you could drop the mother and calves. Pedrosa dives into the hunt. The moose also sensed danger, approached the female, and retreated with the calf. The moment was in front of him. It all hinged on this shot. Sadly, his first shot misses, and Pedrosa bolts after it. But in that snarled forest, how could he ever match a moose's pace? Eventually, he lost them. He heard water by the river, but when he got there, he found nothing. This failed hunt was a heavy blow to Pedrosa's confidence.
I feel terrible. Today, I missed my chance. I don't deserve to be here. I probably injured that moose. That moose could feed me here forever. And I lost one more arrow.
Pedrosa had thought he'd hit that moose, yet now he not only hadn't brought it down, he'd also lost an arrow. At this point, he had only 3 arrows left, which meant just 3 more chances to hunt. If he lost all his arrows, then fishing would be his only active way to get food. He lay awake all night thinking about that moose, feeling he didn't deserve survival here. From feeling lucky at the start to now facing setbacks and doubting himself, only 7 days had passed, and that drastic shift was something Pedrosa couldn't yet accept. As dawn broke, the morning sun rose and brought hope. Pedrosa didn't keep wallowing in emotions. In his shelter, he rebuilt his fire, using the hollow shaft at the end of an arrow as a simple blowpipe, getting the flames burning steadily again. The shadow of yesterday's failed hunt still clung to his mind. Pedrosa went back to yesterday's moose hunt spot, wanting to check 2 things: whether he had actually hit his target, and whether the moose had been injured because of it. If he'd hit it and failed to track it, he hadn't just lost the animal, he'd also wasted precious resources. If he'd missed the moose instead, he hoped to find the arrow he'd lost. Hunting opportunities could wait, but without arrows, he would be completely unable to get food through hunting. Perhaps God took pity on this poor soul and decided to give him another chance.
What? I found my arrow. Look, the arrow. How deep it is. There is no blood. This means a lot of things. I didn't hurt the young moose. And there's more opportunity. One more arrow means one more shot. Fortunately,
Pedrosa found the arrow he'd shot. There was no blood on the arrowhead, which meant he hadn't hit the moose. Since the moose wasn't injured, Pedrosa's sense of guilt gradually faded. One more arrow for him means one more chance. Before heading back to camp, Pedrosa goes to check his snares and traps. He spots a rabbit, snared in one. After making sure the trap still works, Pedrosa takes down the rabbit. Maybe it's time for him to put the moose hunt on hold for now. Right now, the best use of this rabbit is to drive the rest of his shelter work forward. On the other side, Lake isn't fixated on chasing big game. In just the first week, Lake has passively taken 4 rabbits with his snares and traps. He smokes and preserves 3 of them. Even though his current food stores are ample, he still follows a conservative survival plan, never letting edible food go to waste. Before winter hits for real, Lake gorges on blueberries to shore up his nutrition. Once the cold locks in, they're gone. This spot lies close to his shelter, and at night, he hears splashing. Lake figures it's probably moose moving through. Active hunting isn't in Lake's plan, but if a perfect chance comes along, he's not about to pass it up. Lake's camp sits in a maze of rivers, so he fells a few pine trees along the bank to build a simple bridge, making it easier to cross water and reach distant resources. He lowers his camera into the river to inspect underwater, and in this frozen land, even the stream holds almost no aquatic life. Lake figures otters or wild ducks are most likely to pass through, so he decides to set a snare under the bridge and camouflages the bridge itself with branches, hoping to get extra meat. Lake's survival plan avoids active hunting. Setting up snares and traps is his main task. Whenever he has time, Lake lays a large number of snares throughout the forest, placing one on every path animals might use. Once the time limit on using gillnets is lifted, Lake immediately sets a gillnet in the river, and from then on, it's just a matter of patiently waiting to haul it in. Both the gillnet and the snares are passive hunting systems. Before his stored food runs out, Lake heads to the meadow daily to gather berries. To harvest these blueberries more efficiently, he makes a berry picker, mainly to test whether hand-picking or using the tool is faster.
Hop, 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 set this and go. Don't give up, never give up. And over. Let's check what's the outcome.
Tools show their edge even in brief tests, while steady hand-picking relies more on practice and rhythm. For Lake, the point of this comparison isn't who wins, but to verify his survival efficiency. The berry picker yields 59 more berries than by hand. It seems simple survival tools really can make a difference. When Lake heads to the shore to check the gillnet, he unexpectedly spots a wild duck nearby. Though Lake avoids active hunting, he's quick to shoot when prey practically walks up to him. That shot likely went straight through the duck's body, and then he hears a squirrel chattering behind him, with prey arriving one after another. Lake walks toward the sound and finds a squirrel happily calling from a tree. Lake hadn't thought the bow and arrows he'd packed would really see use. Both arrows land true on the first try. With luck on your side, it's hard to go hungry. Lake wades into the water to retrieve the duck. It's not very big, but it still gives him a solid shot of calories. Neither of these windfalls was ever in his plan. In this barren wilderness with so little food, any extra protein can reshape a day's survival, and this wild duck lets him top up his energy reserves early. The squirrel gives him proof his trap system works, and his streak of luck isn't over. Yesterday, Lake built a small bridge across a river channel and set a snare on it. He hadn't expected much from it, but when he checked, he saw the camouflaging branches on the bridge had been disturbed. Moving closer to inspect, he discovered a rabbit drowned there. He realized the small bridge he'd built had accidentally turned into a rabbit path.
No way, it was using this path.
This unexpected success makes Lake realize that the animals here might be just like people. They're also hemmed in by this tangle of river channels, and as long as there's a way through, they might use it as well. Today, he has already taken a duck, a squirrel, and a rabbit, and he hasn't even begun on the other snares he set earlier. There might be even more to gain. When Lake goes to check those earlier snares,
You must be kidding me.
as blessings seem to chase him down, Lake feels in a dream. He hadn't expected his snares to prove so effective. Lake continues on to check the other traps. He crouches to adjust the camera, and sure enough, there's another squirrel. On his way back to camp with the day's haul in hand, a squirrel unexpectedly appears near the camp. Lake never misses a chance, and with a quick thrust, drops the squirrel. This is the fourth squirrel taken today. Multiple independent traps paid off quickly is not common in wilderness survival. The high activity of wildlife in this area gives Lake a huge harvest today. 4 squirrels, a wild duck, and a rabbit. Such a crazy hunting record instantly makes Lake feel he really might win this championship. But he's not the only one riding a lucky streak today. Will's set lines also pay off with a 10 gin pike, which could rival Lake's entire haul for the day. Meanwhile, Fishing King Burti reels in another pike. For Burti, already sitting on several dozen gin of fish, this pike is clearly just the icing on the cake. At this stage, it's hard to imagine any other contestant matching him. Beyond the fishing pros, Jack snags a rabbit, and he thinks he can win the competition. Pedrosa steps out of his failed elk hunt shadow as his snares bring in another rabbit. For Pedrosa, who practices both active hunting and passive trapping, he may well be the only true winner of this extreme cold challenge.